question, they always find a way out. And why? Because no dharma ever leans on another. Sariputra. In what way do all dharmas not lean on anything? Subhuti, form, etc., is empty in its essential original nature. It is not inwardly supported, not outwardly supported, and it cannot be apprehended anywhere between both. In this manner all dharmas do not lean on anything, on account of the emptiness of their essential original nature. It is thus that a bodhisattva, who courses in the 6 perfections, should fully cleanse all dharmas, from form to the knowledge of all modes. Going forth on the path. Be Sariputra. How does a bodhisattva, who courses in the 6 perfections, cleanse the path to enlightenment? Subhuti. There is a worldly perfection of giving, and there is a supra-mundane perfection of giving. Sariputra. What is the worldly, and what the supra-mundane perfection of giving? The worldly perfection of giving. Subhuti. This is the worldly perfection of giving. Here a bodhisattva gives, and gives liberally, to recluses, Brahmins, the poor, mendicants, travelers, and beggars. He gives food to those who are hungry, and to those who desire them he gives drinks, vehicles, garments, perfumes, garlands, ointments, flowers, incense, aromatic powders, homes, asylum, shelter, the requirements of life, services, lodgings, and medicines. Likewise he gives his sons, daughters, and wife kingdoms, as well as his head, limbs, flesh, blood, and marrow to those who desire them. But he renounces all that while leaning on something. It occurs to him, I give, that one receives, this is the gift. I renounce all that I have without any niggardliness. I act as the Buddha commands. I practice the perfection of giving. I, having made this gift into the common property of all beings, dedicated to the supreme enlightenment, and that without basing myself on anything. By means of this gift and its fruit, may all beings in this very life be at their ease, and may they without any further clinging enter the final nirvana. Tied by 3 ties he gives a gift. Which 3? The notion of self, the notion of others, the notion of a gift. To give a gift tied by these 3 ties. That is called the worldly perfection of giving, and it is called worldly, because one does not swerve away from the world, does not depart from it, does not pass beyond it. The supramundane perfection of giving. The supramundane perfection of giving, on the other hand, consists in the threefold purity. What is the threefold purity? Here a bodhisattva gives a gift, and he does not apprehend as self, a recipient, or a gift. Also no reward of his giving. He surrenders that gift to all beings, but does not apprehend those beings, or himself either. And, although he dedicates that gift to the supreme enlightenment, he does not apprehend any enlightenment. This is called the supramundane perfection of giving, and it is called supramundane because one swerves away from the world, departs from it, passes beyond it. In the same way should the difference between the worldly and the supramundane perfections of morality, patience, vigour, and concentration be understood. Sariputra. What is the worldly, and what the supramundane perfection of wisdom? The worldly perfection of wisdom. Subhuti. This is the worldly perfection of wisdom. Here a bodhisattva gives a gift, leaning on a basis, i.e. he thinks that I should suppress all niggardly thought in myself. Leaning on the notions of self-being and gift, he renounces all that he has, all inner and outer things, appropriated and unappropriated, and there is nothing that he does not renounce. And that wholesome root which results from this act of renunciation, he dedicates to the supreme enlightenment, after he has made it common to all beings, but leaning on a basis. He tends morality, and is established in the ascetic practices, while leaning on the body, speech, and thought as a basis. While he tends those 10 ways of wholesome action, leaning on the views of self. A being in wholesomeness, he dedicates those moralities, made common to all beings, to an enlightenment which he has apprehended, and throughout basing himself on something. He exalts not himself, nor depreciates others, and endures being ill-treated by all, while leaning on the views of self, a being, a patience. That wholesomeness he dedicates to the supreme enlightenment, after he has made it common to all beings, but leaning on a basis. He exerts vigor, while apprehending body, thought, the equipment with merit, the equipment with cognition, a self and enlightenment, and he fancies himself for that exertion and vigor. Having made that merit common to all beings, he dedicates it to the supreme enlightenment while basing himself on something. He develops friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and impartiality. He enters into the trances and attainments and again emerges from them. But he derives relish from them and in consequence fancies himself for them. He makes the wholesome roots common to all beings and dedicates them to enlightenment, but always having some basis in view. He develops emptiness, and he apprehends that everything from form to the enlightenment of a Buddha is empty, always basing himself on something. Those wholesome roots he makes common to all beings and dedicates them to the supreme enlightenment, but by way of assuming a basis. He confesses all the evil he has done, by way of assuming a basis, and rejoices at his own merit and that of others. For his own sake and that of others he entreats the Buddhas for instruction, but while basing himself on something. Without skill and means he dedicates the merit from his confession, rejoicing, and entreaty to all knowledge, having first made it common to all beings. This is called the worldly perfection of wisdom. D. The supramundane perfection of wisdom. What, on the other hand, is the supramundane perfection of wisdom? Through his non-apprehension of self-being's gift, or enlightenment, and through the threefold purity, he cleanses the perfection of giving for enlightenment. Through his non-apprehension of self-being morality, or enlightenment, he cleanses the perfection of morality for enlightenment. And likewise the perfection of patience by the non-apprehension of self-beings, enduring, and enlightenment. The perfection of vigour by the non-apprehension of self, physical and mental vigour, merit and cognition, and enlightenment. The perfection of concentration by the non-apprehension of self-beings, trances and concentrations and attainments, and enlightenment. The perfection of wisdom by the non-apprehension of self-beings, all dharmas, and enlightenment. He dedicates all the wholesome roots to the supreme enlightenment by means of a dedication which is undifferentiated, supreme, equal to the unequaled, unthinkable, incomparable, and measureless. This is called the supramundane perfection of wisdom. E. Conclusion. Sariputra. What is a bodhisattva's path to enlightenment? SUBHUTI. The 4 applications of mindfulness, and so on, all the 21 practices described in I. Sariputra. Of which perfection is that the doing? SUBHUTI. Of the perfection of wisdom. For the perfection of wisdom is the genetrix and recipient of all the wholesome dharmas, be they the dharmas of disciples, pratyeka Buddhas, bodhisattvas or Buddhas. After training in perfect wisdom, the Tathagatas of the past have known full enlightenment. The Tathagatas of the future will know full enlightenment after training in perfect wisdom. And those Tathagatas who at present in the world in the 10 directions stand, hold, and maintain themselves, and demonstrate Dharma, all these also have known full enlightenment after training in just this perfection of wisdom. If, when this perfection of wisdom is being taught, a bodhisattva is not perplexed or stupefied, then one should know that he dwells in this dwelling, and that he is not lacking in this attention, i.e., in the attention which does not abandon all beings in order to protect them, and in the attention of the great compassion. Sariputra. So it is, as you say. Such a bodhisattva dwells in this dwelling, and is not lacking in this attention. This being so, then, SUBHUTI, all beings must already be bodhisattvas. And why? Because all beings are not lacking in attention. SUBHUTI. Well said, Sariputra. And yet I must reprove you, for the Ven. Sariputra has grasped the matter correctly only as far as the words are concerned. And why? One should understand that the non-beingness of attention results from that of beings. That the emptiness of attention, its lack of own being, and its isolatedness result from the emptiness of beings, their lack of own being, their isolatedness. That acts of attention do not undergo the process which leads to enlightenment in the same way in which beings do not undergo that process. Similarly, one should understand that the non-beingness, emptiness, etc. of attention results from the non-beingness, emptiness, etc. of form, etc. It is by this method that a bodhisattva, a great being, should be known as not lacking in this dwelling and in this kind of attention, which is the attention of the great compassion. The Lord. Well said, SUBHUTI, well said. The perfection of wisdom of the bodhisattvas, the great beings, should be explained as you have through the might of the Tathagata expounded it. As you described it, so should a bodhisattva, a great being, course in the perfection of wisdom. Epilogue. When this chapter of the perfection of wisdom had been taught by the Ven SUBHUTI, the great trichiliocosm shook and the Lord smiled on that occasion. 6 ways. SUBHUTI. What, O Lord, is the cause but the reason for the manifestation of a smile? The Lord. Just as in this world system the Tathagata expounds the perfection of wisdom, so the Tathagatas in all the 10 directions, in incalculable and immeasurable world systems, also teach the perfection of wisdom to the bodhisattvas, the great beings. When the Ven SUBHUTI expounded this perfection of wisdom, 12 myriads of gods and men acquired through wisdom the patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. And when the Buddhas and Lords in the world systems in the 10 directions all round taught this perfection of wisdom to the bodhisattvas, the great beings, the hearts of countless beings were raised to full enlightenment. End chapter 21.